Hello, how are you doing today? I hope that you're spending time not just taking care of your physical health, but also your mental and your spiritual health as well. Our word of encouragement today comes from the book of John, chapter 11, and verse 33, which says, When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. He was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. There have been so many explanations and so many conclusions that have been drawn, so many conspiracy theories that have come up, so many even mathematical equations that I've seen as a way of trying to explain what exactly is happening around the world with this coronavirus COVID 19 business. And so I have to admit that some have made me laugh, some I have outrightly dismissed because they're just ridiculous. Some have given me something to think about, and others have troubled me. I would like for us to talk about one that I find has been preoccupying my mind a lot lately because it has deeply troubled me. And that is the explanation that says that somehow, because some regions or some places have experienced more devastating loss than others, that is an indication that God has left or abandoned or vacated that place and has therefore unleashed his wrath upon those places because of something that has been going on in that place. Some explanations say it is because of the lifestyles of the people in that place or in those regions. Other explanations say that it is because of the kind of things that have been going on or that have been allowed to happen in those areas. And you see, I have a problem with that because I believe it paints God as something that he is not. To accept that explanation is to accept that somehow God has a grading system for our sins. That somehow the sins, quote unquote, the sins that have been committed or are being committed in those areas or those regions are somehow more sinful than the sins that are committed everywhere else around the world. And that is not true. The Bible is very clear in Romans 3 and 23. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. All have sinned, not some, but all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. There is none of us, no matter how righteous or holy we believe that we are, who could ever stand before God in our own merit and believe that we are somehow more deserving of his grace and his mercy than anybody else around the world. That is not true. We are all sinful in his eyes. There is not a single sin that is more sinful than any other. All sins are equal before God. And so to imagine that somehow God is more upset about the sins of those people in those regions, whatever those sins may be, than he is about the sins that are in our lives and in our hearts is to believe something that is not true of God. We all are in need of God's saving grace. Now, I cannot say for sure what God is thinking because I am not God. And his ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts are greater than my thoughts. He is God after all. It is his prerogative to do whatever it is that he wants with his creation. However, I believe that our verse today, is a clearer indication, a more truthful indication of who God is. He is a God who is so affected by our grief and by our losses that he actually weeps. Jesus was so affected by the loss and the grief and the hurt that the people were experiencing that he himself was deeply troubled and moved. He himself actually wept. That is the God I serve. The God who makes himself so personal and so intimate, that is so affected by what is happening in your individual life, in our individual lives, that he actually weeps along with us. So, this idea that God somehow plays favorites is so alien to the God we serve. God does not play favorites. God is not unaffected by what is happening to us. God is affected, deeply troubled, and moved by what is happening in each of your individual lives, no matter how big or small what is happening is. God is intimate, He is personal with your situation in your life. And so I encourage you today to go to Him with your personal situation, with your personal circumstances, to cry out to Him about what is affecting you, what your grief is, what your losses are. I can guarantee you today, as sure as I am sitting here talking to you, that He is listening. I challenge you today. Why won't you take your requests to Him? Your grief, your losses. He is waiting.